I decided that this skirt we're going to use our jeans that we've been saving for our upcycle, and I'm actually going to be making this in quarter panels instead of the double panel. So I'm laying this down on my jean that I have cut open at the inner seam, and I added 5 inches to the bottom, and I'm adding 5/8 of an inch all along this inner seam because I'm going to sew them together, and that way it will end up being the same size as my pattern when I'm finished. So again, lay the pattern down, cut it to the length that you want. Our pencil skirt pattern was made to the knee, but you can make it any length, shorter or longer that you want. I'm going to add from the knee 5 inches down and mark that, and then from the middle all the way along from the bottom of my hemline all the way to the waist. I'm just going to put my ruler down and I'm going to mark 5/8 of an inch off to make sure that I have that seam allowance when I sew this together. And this is going to have a zipper in it, and we'll show that in another step. And once we get the first panel cut out, we can just take that panel. We no longer need to use this pattern. We'll take this panel, flip it over so the right sides are together, and use it as a pattern to get an exact copy of the next piece that we need. Now, because I'm making this into a pencil skirt, I need to have 4 of these panels. So here's 2 out of 1 pair of jeans, and then I'm going to use a second pair of jeans to get my other 2 panels, and I'm going to be removing the pocket very carefully to use for decorative pockets on my pencil skirt. So halfway through the tutorial, I decided this would be really cool as a wrap skirt. So what I did is I opened up my pencil skirt pattern because I had it doubled, and I have the 2 back panels already cut. So the front panel I'm going to have in 2 pieces. I'm going to have to cut it twice still, but I don't want the entire front. So I'm just going to take this pattern and I'm going to fold it a little like that because I'm still going to have to edge finish this. And then I'm going to take it after I cut this piece and I'm going to flip the pattern over and I'm going to cut it exactly the same but in reverse on another piece of denim. Let me cut this and then I'll show you how I'm going to flip it and cut it in reverse so that there's no questions. You can see that I took our pattern piece cut out of the denim, which was this direction, flipped the denim over so that it is face down onto the next piece of jean that we're going to use to cut out. I weighed it down with some butter knives to stabilize the fabric, and I'm going to cut this out, and then I'll start showing you the construction details, how our skirt's going to go together. Right here I've placed our 2 back pieces that we cut first just on the table together, overlapped a little bit. And now we're going to see how this skirt is going to start coming together. So, this will be one of the top pieces. And this is the other top piece. And you can see how it's going to overlap. So when you open it, it will have a fastener, a snap, or a button of some sort at this part up here. And then the skirt will wrap over the top of that. And we'll fasten again right there. And that is how easy it is to make a wrap skirt. And we did this out of some old denim jeans that I picked up from Goodwill, or they were in a donation box. So I'm going to start sewing this together. Of course, when we stitch it together, we're going to put all of the right sides together. And the first part that I'm going to start stitching up is going to be the back. Now, I cut this with a 5/8 seam allowance, but I'm going to loosely baste this together and make sure, because this is non-stretch, that this is truly going to fit me before I sew it together using some nice tight stitching. So I have right sides together of our back pieces, the first ones we cut, and I'm going to stitch along this middle line here. And then when I finish, it will open up to be the completed back piece. We're going to add some pockets to the skirt, and I'm taking the easy way out. I am not removing all of this stitching. I just took the pocket and I cut it very carefully out all the way around, and then I cut this middle part out that was on the back. And I'm going to show you real quick how I did this. I cut as close as I could and at an angle going inward. Just like that. And then this part is the part that I'll cut out all the way around that seam so that we don't have this extra bulk right here. I'm going to go ahead and cut out my pockets, and then we can decide the placement and start sewing them up. I placed the pockets of the jeans at an angle because I'm making this like an art to wear kind of piece of clothing. I'm going to just zigzag and top stitch in a different color thread onto each of the pockets on the outside to hold them in place. Later, after the skirt is finished, I'm going to come back over with some fabric dye and some beads and, I don't know, maybe some fabric paint. And we're going to completely change the look of this skirt, make it something really different from anything that anybody else has, because that's why we sew our clothes, to be different. This is the piece that will overlap in the front. I'm going to sew the pockets on, and I will need to edge finish this. I can either do that by folding it over and stitching that down, or I can put some bias tape on it, or I can make a binding with another piece of denim, a facing, and put on here, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a facing for this top piece. The other piece that goes underneath of it for the wrap will also have to be finished on this edge. And that can be done by making a facing as well, or by just turning under and top stitching down. Now when we start sewing the skirt together, remember we start from the top, which would be the waist, and work our way downwards toward the hem. And that is kind of the rule of thumb in sewing. Always start at the top and sew your stitches going downward to the bottom. I'm just going to use a straight stitch on my machine at the stitch length at 3.5. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to straight stitch all the way down the sides. I am going to double sew my seams, which means I will sew them completely all the way first, and then I will go back and sew over them again, because I do not have the jean thread. I just have regular all-purpose thread, and denim really needs to have kind of a stronger thread, and I want to make sure that my skirt doesn't fall apart. Then I will go back and I will zigzag the edges to edge finish. If you have a serger, then you can just skip that step, because your serger will do it for you the first time around. And you can see that I'm not pulling the fabric, I'm letting the machine do the work, because it's a thicker fabric and it needs to take its time to work the needle through the fabric. I just wanted to show the stitching of the pocket, because that might be a little difficult for beginners to do. If your sewing machine does not like to sew heavy fabric, do not make it sew heavy fabric. You do not want to break your sewing machine. You can attach the pockets using fabric glue. You can attach them using some brads, hammering them through. You can attach them using Wonder Web or the fusible web. I don't know the name of it. They sell it at Walmart. It's like $1.88 a spool. So there's a lot of options for attaching the pockets. Do not force your sewing machine to sew through heavy fabric if it does not want to. Also, make sure you use the proper needle. This needle is for jean fabric. So make sure that you do all of those things and take really good care of your machine, because it's not worth ruining over sewing on a pocket. I'm starting out with a straight stitch on 3.5, and I'm just going over the inside line here on this pocket, and then I'll follow up with a zigzag going around. And because it's really thick right here, I have to help it just a little, and I don't force it. And I go slow. The machine wants to go fast. Boo, stop that. The baby was pushing the pedal. And when we get to this little corner here, needle in, lift up the lever, and turn the fabric. Lower the lever, and then continue on. Boo, don't do that. Again, we're at a corner. Needle is in, lift up the lever, rotate your fabric, lever down, and unsew. I'm using a commercial machine, and it's supposed to sew through something like 8 layers, 10 layers of denim. So I'm not really worried here with the 3 layers that I have. But I do go slow so I don't stress the motor. Back stitch. And that's it for the straight stitch of the pocket. Do the same with the zigzag going all the way around, and you've sewn on your pocket. We're at the point right now where I need to start finishing these raw edges. I have found a strip of my denim that is left over, and I'm going to line it up with the opening of my skirt, and I'm just going to cut a piece that fits exactly from the bottom of the hem all the way up to the waist, and then I'm going to just stitch this down, right sides together, stitch it down. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And after I stitch that, I'm going to open it up, press it to the inside, and then top stitch. And that will be a finished edge for my skirt. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Here you can see that we took the facing that we made, right sides together. I sewed it together all the way from the waist to the hem. Then I turned it so it's wrong sides together, and I'm top stitching it. And when I finish, it looks like this. Completely finished. Here I have the wrap skirt almost finished. And for time's sake of the tutorial, I'm not going to completely finish this. The only thing left to do for my skirt is to finish the top here, and that can be done by bias tape, by folding over and stitching, or by making another facing like we did for the side pieces. So here's the wrap skirt, and it opens up. So this part right here, I would have some buttons or snaps on, and then this would wrap over and connect at 2 places. It would connect here with a snap or button, and again here with a snap or button. And then if you wanted to put another snap or button further down to keep the skirt more closed, that's up to you. The hem, I am going to finish the hem with a ruffle, but you could just straight stitch this and leave it raw, or you could fold it under and hem it, or you could use bias tape or another method like with the ruffles like what I'm going to do. So this is how we made our wrap skirt using our pencil skirt pattern, and I use denim, but you can certainly use any sort of fabric that you wish and be creative. If you have any questions, message me, and if you are not in our Facebook group, I'm putting the link down below. Please join us.